3, 2.
Your mind affects your health in a profound way. Early trauma impacts your body on a deep level, and many illnesses start in the emotional, mental, spiritual realm and move into the physical. And your body goes where your mind goes. And when your mind is in dark places, your body gets sick. This has been a huge problem, particularly with people who have chronic illnesses, because they take all these drugs to get rid of the illness. It doesn't get rid of the illness, gives you lots of side effects, and you don't deal with the root cause. So we're going to be dealing with that. We're going to be dealing with that right after this. Welcome, everybody. This is the Life Enthusiast online radio and TV network, restoring vitality to you and the planet. I am host Scott Paton, and joining us as usual is Life Enthusiast health coach Martin Patella. Hey, Martin, how are you doing today?
It's a good day, Scott. You know,
always a good day.
As they said in Little Big Horn or Little Big Man, it's a good day to die, grandfather. I forget that movie, but it was Dustin Hoffman in a role of a young man long ago.
And Star Trek The Next Generation stole that because Worf, the Klingon security guy, would always say, it's a good day to die. So before we get into today's topic, I want to remind everybody that we are censored. We are not banned. We don't want to be banned. We don't want to be censored. So we're a little bit careful what we say on the major social platforms of which we are streaming to right now. But if you want to know what we really think, you can join us uncensored on Telegram right after the show ends. And let me just see if I can find that URL.
It will be at noon, and the URL is t.me/lifeandco, LIFENTCO.
There you go. All right. So we're going to be talking today about dealing with trauma. And, this is a deeply personal journey for all of us. Oftentimes, it's things that we're guilty about, ashamed of. We don't want to look at the shadow parts of ourselves. We don't want to shine a light in the shadows. And it requires a combination of methods to address, the physical, emotional, and psychological impacts of a traumatic experience. So, Martin, what would you say is the first place to start when we're dealing with trauma?
Well, I guess awareness, right? You need to realize it's there. That's one. It's almost all of us. The most common manifestation we hear about is called post-traumatic stress, where we have seen something or experienced something that will leave a mark on us. How do you want me to start? Do I start defining how it happens, or
I think we should start with young babies, children. They don't know what the meaning may be of traumatic things that happen. I think we were talking about it a couple of days ago about, like a 5-year-old, he's about to run out on the street in front of the car. Dad gets all, he just thinking, I got to save my kid, grabs the kid, yells at the kid, yanks him off the street. The kid doesn't know anything that's going on. He just knows that daddy is being mean to him for some unknown reason, and carries that forward into his adult life.
Right. Yeah. A different example that really sticks with me is the famous lollipop story, where this 31-year-old woman is sabotaging her career she's living an interesting life. She's a high-powered IT worker, and she's really doing well. And yet she is sabotaging her progression because in her subconscious, it's stuck, I'm undeserving and I'm unlovable. And how did she get here? She, as a 3-year-old, was having dinner with her sister and her mom, and mom says, Yes, you can have the lollipop as soon as you finish your dinner, just like your sister already did. The sister is already eating the lollipop, and our protagonist is not. And what's stuck in her mind is, they won't let me have my lollipop. I'm undeserving, I'm unlovable, and I am just a terrible person. And that's how she goes. And the mother is the most loving person who's trying to care for her daughter and feed her well,
Right.
preserve her long-term benefit. And look what it brought us. So every one of us has mommy issues, daddy issues, brother issues, sister issues, sibling, oh, I've said that,
Cousins, uncles, aunts,
name it.
friends,
Yeah,
teachers.
classmates, school, work, it just piles on. What's interesting is this: until we are 6 years old, we have no filters. There's no gate at the consciousness entry point. So until you're 6, it's almost like you're hypnotized. You are accepting suggestions directly into your subconscious without a filter.
Right. And there's not much of a filter until you get into your teens and a little bit later, probably.
Yeah, I remember a teacher who was telling me, never mind, can you hypnotize people? The bigger problem is, can you unhypnotize people?
Right. And this is an area that most people don't, unless it's a crisis, an emotional, mental crisis, they don't deal with. I mean, we have lots of people going to psychiatrists and psychologists, taking drugs for all that sort of thing, and, being psychoanalyzed. But, a lot of people, unless they absolutely have to, they don't want to do this. And I remember after my divorce, I spent about 5 years going to personal development courses. And most of them were of the kind of like, whoa, like they were almost traumatic in and of themselves, right? But they were ways for us to be able to see ourselves. And then, like you said, awareness. Once you're starting to be aware of certain things, you can change it. Until you don't, you can't. But one of the reasons I think most people don't like doing this personal development work is because many places, like I'll just name drop Landmark, they're very tough. They're very hard. And that's the way I thought it was. And as I was thinking about today, I remembered a course I took in Sedona called the Sedona Method. And so here I am, I go into this retreat and I am just ready to, I don't know what's going to come out, but I'm expecting bawling and sniveling and crying and anguish and all the rest of it. And they start the process. And the process is very simple. You just ask a question and then another question and your partner answers. And so we're getting ready to start. And of course, the people who are experienced have already sat down on the floor facing each other and started, and they're all laughing. And I was totally freaked out because, I'm waiting for fainting and crying and banging of heads. And there's like 30 people in this room, and already 10 of them are just howling with laughter. Because, and its whole thing was, I think, about, is this really significant? Like, could you just let go of it? Actually, what it is whatever's bothering you, I don't need to know what it is, but could you let it go just for like a couple seconds? And the person's thinking about this terrible thing, and then they let it go. And then all this laughter and the joy comes in when they,
when you let it go.
And it just spirals, right? Like, what do you mean let it? First of all, what do you mean let it go, right? I'm hanging on to this thing for 50 years. I'm not letting it go now. So the reason I say that is some of these courses can be joyful, and that's the whole purpose. Is to
let me try and explain something here. The conscious mind, the frontal lobe, language, and all of that, we control that. We have volitional control over it. However, the subconscious stuff is not accessible. So talking therapy, psychoanalysis is useless. You are reliving the same stuff. You're wallowing in your crap over and over and over. You're reliving it. Now, here's something about human memory. When you are recalling something, you're actually not replaying it like from a DVD. It's not like a computer file that you'll play back and it will be there the same when you play it again. It's not like that. It's read and write. So every time you're reliving a memory, you're actually redepositing it. So depending on what mood you are in when you're reliving this thing, it will affect it. And here's where methods such as, for example, neuro-linguistic programming, and thank you, George, for bringing it up, comes to fore. For the neuro-linguistic programming is based on the following. We have memories. They can be happy memories. They could be ugly memories. They could be triggering events. The point is this. Your body is always seeking a balance in the positive. So you can create an anchor. An anchor is a signal for the memory to be replayed. So we'll come up with a horrible memory. I don't know, somebody in front of me was murdered, or I was raped, or whatever the horrible thing is. Just I watched a whole theater shot up with automatic machine fire. Something horrible, right? Something I've seen. But it doesn't have to be the most horrible thing. It could be just remembering what an asshole your father was, whatever it is. And you anchor that, and you can anchor that physically, kinesiologically, like you can do it with snap your fingers, you can touch your shoulder or something like that. An anchor. And then you create another anchor, something really positive, something really happy, swimming with dolphins, proposing to your loved one, something really super positive that really fires you up in a good way. And you anchor that to another thing, a different sound and a different touch. And then you fire those two anchors at the same time. Boom. And what comes next is the brain gets scrambled. It tries to replay the two memories at the same time. And always, always, always the happy memory will win. So that's the way of dealing with horrible memories stuck in your head using NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. And a good, skilled NLP practitioner can be worth its money in gold, because you can be rid of just about anything. Attachment, phobia, like you may think that you have to live your life in a specific way. You don't. It can be reprogrammed.
So, Martin, let's dive into the connection between the mind and the body, particularly when it comes to being not at ease, which we call dis-ease, and that process, because we're here about vitality for you and the planet. So why are we at all concerned about what's going on when we were 5 years old in our head today, and how does that relate to the illnesses that we're seeing?
It's almost like a filter with which you're perceiving the world, through which you process your reality, right? So if you're an undeserving, unlovable person, you will always end up creating undeserving outcomes. If you are always triggered into anxiety by something, a thought, a memory, an emotion, then you will live a stressed, emotionally charged life. The autonomic nervous system, autonomic, or used to be called automatic, is the body functions that are outside of the volitional control. We do have more control than we realize, but it's essentially out of control. And it has two branches, sympathetic and parasympathetic. Sympathetic is the fight, flight, and parasympathetic, rest, repair, digest. So if you happen to cause a trigger to put you into the fight, flight mode, your mind goes into processing future in a fearful way, painting the darkest images of what may come, or process your past in a dark way, going over all the regrets that you have had, all the things that you did that you shouldn't have, or you should have done differently, or all of that. And in that state of mind, your blood pressure goes up, your digestion is not working right, you cannot sleep, Um,
Heart rate goes up.
yeah, all that. So that's where the health or unhealth lives. If you are not spending a lot of time in the parasympathetic side, you're aging faster, you're not sleeping well, you're a miserable, disagreeable, old, unpleasant codger.
So you reminded me, and not that she was disagreeable, unpleasant, or a codger, of my ex-wife. She was anorexic, and she would have cramps or pain in her stomach. So I would massage her stomach. And I tell you, Martin, her stomach was a rock.
Yeah,
She
tightens
held
down.
tight, like, yeah, like, I mean, it was like if you had a piece of wood and you banged on it, if you banged on her stomach, it would be the same feeling. It wouldn't make the same noise. Obviously, there's flesh there.
She was so unrelaxed. She was tied up in knots.
She was tied up in knots. And I thought, man, like, if you don't like learn to deal with this, relax or whatever, when, it's okay when you're 22, right? I mean, it's not okay when you're 22, but you're not disabled when you're 22 if your stomach is tied up in knots. When you're 42, she was a total basket case. Like, she had mental problems, physical problems, because she, in my mind, she was holding on to stuff. She held on to it in her stomach, and her body had no opportunity to rest and no opportunity to relax.
Right. Yes. And I wish, and I hope you would wish for her too, that somewhere along the way, the tools were made available, that she was made aware of the solutions that exist.
Yeah.
And it's a horrible thing. I know so many people who are unwilling and unable and unwilling to actually do things differently because they see themselves in this particular way, and it's their life. They define themselves by hanging on to that dysfunction, if I would call it that.
Now, when you were talking, the word that came up for me was belief, because there's also these beliefs, right? Like, I go see my doctor, he's going to give me a pill for this, it's going to fix my problem. And then we have another problem.
Right. And so if you have anxiety, you can take anti-anxiety drugs, but that does not actually solve your anxiety. It only solves the connection between your anxiety and your brain. So you're actually disconnecting from the input, but the input continues to play.
Right. It's the old put a gum over the engine light that tells you need to go take your engine to the mechanic, right?
Yeah. The ostrich method of dealing with a problem. Stick your head in the sand. If you're not seeing it, it does not exist.
Right. And so I don't know why my ex-wife is front and center on this particular episode, but like I said, she was holding on to everything. She was anorexic, and growing up, her mom and her had huge fights over her not eating ice cream. Okay.
Yeah.
Most people are the opposite, but she wouldn't eat anything that was sugary or sweet or fatty or all that stuff. So her mom became basically brain dead. Not brain dead, that's wrong. Like a zombie. She tried to commit suicide. She went to the hospital. They gave her some drugs. She was basically not there.
Yeah.
And of course, it was because she felt so much guilt. She was also hanging on to everything. And a big part of it was the guilt because her daughter was anorexic and not well, blah, blah, blah. So I worked in a grocery store. I came home one night, and for some reason, it wasn't like usual, but this night I brought home a Black Forest cake, which of course my ex-wife would normally never eat, but she's now married to me in an environment where I'm supporting her, and we're talking about all this stuff. And so we have our dinner, and she says, oh, by the way, mom and dad are coming by. So I said, no problem. And I brought out dessert right when the doorbell rang. So she's got the dessert in front of her. I go to the door and I say, come on in, come into the dining room. We're just having dessert and then we'll visit. And of course, mom is like this the whole time. And she sits down and dad sits down, and she just stares at this Black Forest cake. Like, she just cannot believe her eyes. Like, it penetrated the fog. right? And the guilt and the shame and all the rest of it. And we had a nice visit and they left. Well, a week later, she was off all of her medication. She had a part-time job at Eaton's, which is a department store in Canada, and she was fine for the rest of her life. And I think she's still living. So, but there was this huge belief and holding on of things. When she saw that her daughter was fine, the whole thing just disappeared, and she was mentally fine. She was always physically okay, but she was definitely mentally just a big change.
Amazing. Okay, so for our audience, I personally believe that about 80% of any problem that's represented itself in the physical form is in fact caused by something that's in the invisible, in the emotional realm. You hear us talking about, you have a physical body, you have an emotional body, you have a mental body, and you have a spiritual body. These are layers of vibrational existence that is very real. It's just not physically manifesting in a way that we could measure, but it penetrates and manifests itself into the world through our being, through our actions. And so your spiritual belief will give you the orientation in the world. Your mental, your thoughts your persistent thoughts will form emotions, which will form behaviors and habits. So watch this, right? If you have a distorted emotional field, you will end up projecting a distorted physical existence. So I can easily sell you a supplement that will compensate for the particular deficit or the hole, but be aware. Yeah, there's a beautiful quote that just came through. George again. George, thank you for participating with us here. It's coming from the subconscious. That's the driver. You know,
yeah, 80% emotional. Agreed.
Yeah.
Thanks, George.
Yeah. You know, when a guy like me gets into the cab that's being driven by a cab driver, I am telling the cab driver where I want to go. But who told me where I need to be? Those are the layers of our existence.
Right. So the good news is, because we're coming up to like our last 5 minutes, the good news is you can do something about it, right? Like you can get help, you can join groups, you can do subliminal audios and listen to them. You can do meditations. You could, I love yoga. You could go to yoga. I find that really good. You can, you can go and you can get lots of help.
You connect with your calmed mind, right? You are actually allowing these things to surface. When you calm down the noise, that's your all the monkey business thoughts that you're having, like I have to go get groceries and I have to remember to buy diapers and blah blah blah, or whatever's going on in your head. That's all noise that's blocking the natural information that would rise up from below the surface if only you could quiet your mind.
Right. And of course, one of the major problems are these things, right? Because we're always on them. We're always looking at stuff. We're scrolling through TikTok just like mindlessly, or we're watching TV. So, turn off these things, the phone, turn off your computer, go out and hug a tree, stand in the grass, ground yourself, go walk by a beach or go walk by a lake, like get out into nature, get in the sun. Do things because if you're looking at your screen and then you go to bed, like the light from your screen is totally screwing up with your sleep stuff. You're not going to be able to get to sleep well. You're not going to be able to have a good sleep. And if you're watching TV to put yourself to sleep, boy, that's a really bad habit that a lot of people have. So you need to find, like, we are way overstimulated. You need to find ways to calm everything down, to be, with yourself, be comfortable with yourself too, right? Like a lot of people, they can't just sit. They got to be doing something, or they got to be talking.
Yeah.
And Arnie, thank you very much. Thank you for sharing. And
here's what I would like to say. Let's just name some tools that we have that we know of. These are not something that we offer in our store, although we do have one really cool tool. It's called AO Scan. This AO Scan is a method by which we can actually scan your electromagnetic existence, your being, and tell you what's going on in your body and affect you, or send you programs that could help you reset. But more than anything, we know that, well, we already talked about neuro-linguistic programming. That's an awesome method. Emotion code works rather well. EFT, emotional freedom technique, is tapping. But you should have a skilled person working with you, because you need to be able to do the languaging of peeling the onion.
Not only that, Martin, I said at the beginning, people don't like to look at the shadows. They don't like to shine a light on the shadow because there's too much guilt, too much shame, too much pain. And you and I both know an expert EFT therapist, and she did a session with me once. And it was kind of like we're going along. And then she found a route and she wanted to go down. I'm like, no, that's fine. We don't need to go there. We just keep going. This is good. Don't, no. And she stopped and she went on this tangent and released this massive root of emotional gunk.
Yeah.
And I was never the same afterwards, but happier. And, you know, but that's why you need people to help you and support you in this, because we will, like 99% of us will go to the gym and we'll lift a 10-pound weight when we should be lifting a 30-pound weight, right? Like we will take the easy way out and we'll do 4 reps instead of 10 reps. So you need a coach. You need someone to work with you on these things. It's so important.
Yeah. Body
and
talk.
Kevin says, try to wear blue light blockers, glasses after the AM, and get outside many times a day. Thank you, Kevin. Good.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, blue light. if you really want to get into it, pursue that. Go chase blue light and just what all it does to us consciously and subconsciously, unconsciously. It's a big hole.
Right. And not good.
Body talk, quantum healing, emotion code,
EFT,
touch for health, educational kinesiology. All of these are methods by which you can reach into the subconscious without actually having to understand the minutia of the content in there. All you have to do is release it. Sometimes you may go for a massage and just a body part gets massaged and something gets released. And next thing you know, you're crying without knowing why. Some buried piece of emotional information just got triggered.
Yeah, we store everything in our bodies. Like, I think that's our subconscious mind is our body, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so tight shoulders, tight hips, tight this, whatever. Those are all holding on, blocking, tight. That's going full circle back to that belly of that lovely wife of yours.
Yeah. So we're coming to the end of our time together. But before we do, Martin is a health coach. He is awesome. And if you go to life-enthusiast.com/shop/life-enthusiast/health-coach.
Just don't make it so complicated. life-enthusiast.com, and in the search box, type the word coach.
And Martin is giving everybody a 15-minute consultation and talk to them about your issues. By the way, you don't need to have an issue. Like I do all of this because I want to prevent things happening in the future. Because when I was 40, I was looking at 40-year-olds that were sick and ill and having nervous breakdowns, and changed my whole career path. And
I'm going to have to go to the other side, because the time clock has run out here, but the other show is starting. It's on Telegram, and you can find it at t.me/lifeandco. Go there and ask any questions. It's a free show where you get to ask us questions live, and we're not afraid to answer them because we're not being watched.
It's uncensored, everybody.
Bye, people. I'm going to the other side.
Thank you for joining us, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.